My first player is going to be Ja Morant.
Had him on
Ja
my list.
Morant is just a very obvious pick to me because if this Grizzlies team does not have Ja Morant, they kind of don't have an offense. I mean, I don't know how much Grizzlies tape you watched after the halfway point of last season when it was clear that they were tanking, but it was ugly. Like they were actually pretty okay on defense. That's the crazy thing, because any game that Jaren played and, any game that, they had like multiple dudes out there that were playing super hard. Certainly Vince Williams deserves a huge assist here. Like they generally really worked on that end of the court, but on offense, they just had nobody that could create shots. And that was without Desmond Bane too. And they had a number of bodies out throughout the course of the year, right? Jaren Jackson was required to create so much more on offense in a way that hindered his efficiency, to be sure. Might help his development long term, but certainly hindered their ability to create efficient offense, to be sure. But man, when Ja is out there, it just completely changes the tenor of everything that they do. And he obviously had like a little minor injury scare in a preseason game earlier this week. It seems like everything's going to be okay there, but him staying healthy and staying on the court just completely changes every single thing about this organization from top to bottom. They really need somebody like Ja Morant to be that offensive engine. And I think that, like, because of everything that's happened with Ja Morant, we kind of forget a little bit how incredible of an offensive engine he can be at times. His vision is unbelievable as a passer. He is explosive. He lives in the paint. He is a real significant finisher at the basket. He consistently drives paint touches just through his sheer presence on the court. They need that. If he's not there, again, like they need to make some real like organizational decisions. It feels like to me, depending on like, okay, can we trust Ja Morant to be here? Because if we can't, then we might need to make like other roster decisions on how we can best build this roster.
The other thing that's so important, which Ja does, which I don't know if anyone in the league does this as well as him. Certainly nobody on Memphis's roster. If you're going to say like important to the offense, 100%, he's especially important to just getting them in transition. Because even when even when we've seen Ja at his absolute best, has always been a chore, Memphis's half-court offense. Even when Ja is at his absolute best. And when Memphis's half-court offense was really gelling, why was it gelling? It wasn't gelling because they were making shots. It was gelling because Steven Adams got every damn offensive rebound, and they would have this fantastic second chance offense. And that was what
Jonas when he was there too. Yeah.
Yes, for sure. For sure. And they would get these offensive rebounds. And right now, I think there's a lot of pressure on Zach Edey for that reason. Having Brandon Clark back will absolutely help with that. He's a really good offensive rebounder, and people forget about him as a guy they were missing last year too. But like Ja Morant is going to have to get them in transition. So even if they're in a place where their half-court offense is, I think they were not last year doesn't count. Last year was a lost year, but 2 years ago, when they were really good, I think they were still like 22nd, 21st in half-court offense, according to Cleaning the Glass. And if they're going to meander around there, or even just in the bottom 15, then what you need is for Ja Morant to just kill everyone in transition. And it's not just about making sure that you score on fast breaks. It's not just about 7 seconds or less. It's also about just rushing the ball down the court, outletting quick, rushing the ball down the court. And maybe because you move so damn fast, somebody matches up wrong. And then that's going to help your half court offense, because someone's got a mismatch, or someone's going to mess up a switch, or someone's going to mess up a coverage because they're in a spot that's uncomfortable. And that's where Ja can pick you apart, because he is a fabulous passer. But if they're not going fast, and I think they're going to have to, and they're going to have the ability to, like if he's playing next to Marcus Smart and you got Clark out there and you got Jaren Jackson Jr. out there with them, like you're going to be able to play fast. And if they are able to do that, they have a chance to be, I mean, I think they're going to be really good either way, but like that's their chance to really, really, really kind of take that leap that we've thought was possible for a long time. The half court offense was always what was their biggest quandary, right?
It was absolutely. So to 2 points in that regard. So first, Ja Morant's played 6,208 minutes over the course of the last 4 seasons. Memphis's offense has a 117 offensive rating when he is out there, and that number came in part before the offensive explosion of last year, right? Actually, it came entirely basically outside of 9 games before the offensive explosion of last season for some teams. When Ja Morant has been off the court, they have a 110.5 offensive rating. It is literally 6 points per 100 possession over a 4-year sample of like 15,000 minutes that the Memphis Grizzlies have played. They desperately need Ja Morant to be out there in a substantial way. To your point on the half court.
By the way, Sam,
right? Yeah,
a lot of those on-offs came with like Tyus Jones backing him up when Tyus Jones was like the best backup point guard in the league. So it's not like there was some huge fall off there from Ja to whoever was backing him up. Like, man, there was a whole stretch where Ja got hurt a couple of years ago and they were 20-5 with Ja out. And part of the reason was because you plug Tyus Jones in there and it's just like offense operates, as good as it's going to be. And you're right. I think you look at those numbers a little differently, knowing even there was strong personnel there.
The second point that I wanted to make is that Zach Edey is really interesting and critical here because Edey is an unbelievable screener. He is going to be such an incredible screener to getting Ja Morant that space that he needs. He's not going to be as good as Steven Adams probably as a rookie, but like he's that level of screening prospect or whatever we want to call it, right? He was, I thought, the best screener in college basketball last season. He got dudes like Braden Smith and Fletcher Lawyer like so loose all the time. So what, and like his ability to like flip screens, reverse screens, set like little ass out screens, and then just like roll into post ups or roll into lobs. Like he is awesome as a screener and getting his guys free. The thing that is different with him compared to Steven Adams, not terribly dissimilar from Jonas, I think how he plays in transition is going to be the most interesting piece of their season. Because Ja's going to want to go. Ja's going to want to get up and down, want to get up the court, try and get easy buckets that way. Edey does not run the floor super well. Like he's in incredible shape for how big he is. He's 7'4", 300 pounds. And like you see him, he's honestly like pretty skinny. Bizarre. Like he does an amazing job of staying in condition. He would run out 40-minute games last year. But he doesn't have that like speed up and down that Ja Morant has. So what is the push-pull of those two things will be kind of interesting to me to track as well. Not even necessarily in like full transition sets, right? Where Ja's just, grabbing a rebound and going, and it's just like a shot within 3 seconds of the shot clock, right? It's more that distance between like 6 and 9 seconds of the shot clock having started, right? So the 18 to 15 second mark. Does he slow down their like slightly early offense kind of thing in that respect while he's getting up and down the court? That's where it'll be really, really interesting to me to track that kind of push pull between Ja and Zach Edey's pacing.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, it's also going to be, how do you think he's going to fit with like, let's say they're starting 5 spacing? What do you make of like his game on the inside with look, Bane is one of the most underrated shooters in the league. He's freaking awesome, but they don't have ideal spacing around the court. What do you make of kind of his fit inside of there?
It'll be interesting to watch. I think that teams will probably sag off of Smart. I think teams, I don't know how they'll treat Ja is kind of my thing, because like teams generally try and prove to Ja that he's going to have a game that will shoot. So I'm a little bit skeptical of the spacing, if I'm being completely transparent. But
and teams will help off it. Teams will help off of Jackson. They'll help off of Ja.
Yeah. Like they need Jaren to have a good shooting year. Like that is an undeniable fact to me. Like Jaren last year shot 32% from 3. He needs to get back to his first 2 years where he was like 36, 39%. If you look at his last 4 years, Jaren has not really made threes at the level that, he gets the credit for being necessarily. He's at like 32.6% over those last 4 years. So that's almost the biggest swing to me within their half court offense is Jaren has to shoot. Like there's no question here about how they have to get to that next level. It has to be Jaren shooting from distance in part. There are other things, but that's a non-negotiable to me.
Especially because like defensively, he's just not best as a 5. It's not like he's bad as a 5. He's one of the best defenders in the league, but the foul rate goes way up when he's a 5. He doesn't anchor the defense the same way. We saw him struggle even when he was with Team USA having to play the 5. He's much stronger as a 4 defensively and much better optimized as a 4 defensively. And if you're going to have him next to a 5, like you mentioned him shooting 36, which would probably be a career high. I don't even know if that's enough. Because to be honest, the goal for Jaren Jackson should not be shoot a high enough percentage to where you're making, X percent. It should be shoot a high enough percentage to where you force guys to actually close out on you, and you can maybe empty out those tight spaces that seem kind of somewhat, predetermined in the middle of the floor. And if Jaren Jackson's shooting 36% halfway into the year, I think the sample size on him is large enough now to where teams are like, we'll help
let
off
this
him.
go.
Yeah, we'll still let this go. The example that I use is, I covered Julius Randle's season a couple of years ago. He was taking 8 threes a game.
From 3.
Yeah. I wasn't even going to say, I was actually thinking 2 years after that. Took 8 threes a game and shot 35% or whatever, made it into the 3-point contest and had just shot 41 2 years earlier. And he was taking 8 a game. Like if you weren't near him, he was going to put it up. And don't get me wrong, teams closed out on him with a little more urgency than they did in, say, the previous season when he shot 30%.
But the difference between Jaren and Julius, though, is that I think part of the reason that you close out on Julius is because Julius is like a bowling ball and is physical. And if you don't get early contact on him on his drives, he's going to go through you, like no questions asked, right? So you almost have to stay a little bit tighter to him. Jaren doesn't really do that yet.
Mm-hmm.
Like he doesn't go through dudes like Julius could just like power up through dudes, right? So that piece of it is also really, really important. Jaren, shot. The reason that Jaren has this reputation is because he shot 36% from 3 as a rookie and then 39% on 6.5% attempts per game as a sophomore. So over the course of his first 2 years, he was at 4.4 attempts per game, hitting 38% from 3. And the second year, he was at 6.5 attempts per game, right? That's why people thought he was a shooter and why he got treated as a shooter, I thought, in his second year and in his third year. But I think teams have kind of stopped doing that more realistically now.